Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Davis, and you are watching Conversations in Pop Culture. And yes, I am scandalous like an Ashley. And before I introduce both my guests, I do want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by Popanimecomics, and they are currently in comic shops with Guinevere and the Divinity Factory, which came out in April, along with a bunch of other books that they got coming out in previews. So go to your local comic store, see if it's on their shelves, or if it's not, ask them to order it for you. And my good friend Preston, who runs that company, has a whatnot, and right now, if you click the link in the description down below, you can get a $15 credit for signing up with whatnot, and you can use code Andrew for an additional 15% off of some sexy comic artwork. So great book, sexy covers, awesome whiskey paint covers are out there. So go support this show and support my friend Preston and everything he's doing, because I do not think you'll be disappointed with all that stuff. But enough about that, because I have with me comic creators, and I'm just going to apologize if I get the name wrong. I don't think I will, but if I do, feel free to correct me to both my guests. I have Lawrence Pacheco and Christopher De La Cruz from Soaring Imagination. So welcome to the show.
How's it going, man?
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited to have both of you on. Obviously, one of you is a lot closer than the other. One of you is in Hawaii, and the other is sort of stateside and on the other coast, and then some, to put it nicely. But because Chris is in Connecticut and Lawrence is in Hawaii.
In the middle of the ocean.
What'd you say?
In the middle of the ocean.
It's okay. It's okay. We are all in the middle of the ocean. I would rather be in Hawaii, to be honest, than in Connecticut. Seems like a better place to be. It seems like paradise. I've been there once. In Maui. And it's a beautiful place, is all I'm going to say. So I'm very upset that I'm not there and I'm here. But we don't have to talk about it. But you guys currently have a Kickstarter going on with a comic that I don't even want to attempt to say because I'm so bad at this. So you can explain to me the title of the book, and then I'll continue before I embarrass myself more than I need to.
The title of the book is called Walaau. And it's a word, it's a Hawaiian word, and basically it means to speak loudly or excessively. And it's the name of the lead character in the comic book, and she has an extraordinary power.
Yes, so let's actually talk a little bit about this whole thing before we even get too far into that, because I don't think what you're doing is just a comic book. Obviously, this is part of a bigger company, Soaring Imaginations, and I know that you guys want to do films and documentaries, and I think you've attempted to do one, and you might have done a few other things. So what is this whole concept? Because people are hearing about this for the first time, where it's not just comics, but it's also film, entertainment, documentaries, potentially a series. So what is that? Because I think it's important that people understand a little bit of your background beyond the comic stuff that you've done.
Okay. Well, I've spent most of my work life in television, and but I have created characters since I was like 7 years old. So I've amassed this book, these binders full of characters, somewhat over 300 of them. And I've made comics when I was a kid, and I had always dreamed of actually making one publicly. And now I thought, this is the time to actually go ahead and do that. And so as far as Soaring Imaginations came around, I created that company to primarily do documentaries, because I have a documentary background, and I'm trying to go ahead and make that a part of the company. I have one that I'm working on, and this comic book thing is fulfilling a dream of mine. So it's moving along. We're doing really well with this issue. We recently had a free comic book day version of it, 4 pages worth, which have been completed, and it looked great.
So let me actually ask you this, because I think this is really interesting. So I'm a big fan of diversification. Obviously, I run a business. I invest in a lot of stocks and things of that nature, and I think it's really important for diversification. And so what is this like to kind of have the entertainment side, documentaries, but then also do the comic book side? Because maybe I'm a pessimistic person, but what I find in life is that when one thing is working, the other usually isn't. And that's how my whole business has been. And so it could very well be that you're in a situation where the documentaries are killing it and comics are kind of taking, I guess, a windfall, and then vice versa. And it allows, I think, and feel free to correct me wrong and challenge me, either one of you, but I think it's very interesting where, great, you might be killing with documentaries and the comics are in a nosedive because comics are in a rough position right now. And then 2-3 years from now could very well be the opposite. And I think it allows companies to survive in many ways because I've been through that in a multitude of ways. So I'm just curious how you feel about that because I think it's so interesting how it's structured, what you want to do with your company. And I think it's, I mean, I know we're getting real technical here and feel free to take the fifth. Feel free at any point to take the fifth, but I actually think it's really smart to set up a company that way.
Right. Well, as far as the documentaries are concerned, I do have that background. I have a lot of experience working on them, and I've worked on about 25 of them, so locally here in Hawaii, and it just is something that's in my blood, something I really love to do, and I am trying to do more. I have this desire to do more of those, and it's the ability to tell stories. And the same is true with comic books. So there is some synergy with that. Comic books and documentaries and filmmaking, short filmmaking, which is something else that I'm going to be doing. So it's all about storytelling. And that's what really means a lot to me. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, same. I mean, I've always loved helping you with those documentaries. When we had the chance, I used to work with Lawrence at a news station on Oahu, so we're good friends that way. Life carried me over here, but always happy to support Lawrence and his storytelling endeavors. It's always been fun, and he's a great storyteller.
No, I think it's so interesting, but I really want to get into the comic here because that's what I know the best, and obviously that's on Kickstarter right now. And so, what is the basic premise of this comic? Because I just want to give people kind of a quick background on the two of you, because people are hearing about YouTube for the first time on my show, most likely. But I do want to dive into the comic. It's on Kickstarter. It's in the link up above, everybody. But what is the basic premise of your book? Because people want to know, and I never heard of your book until I threw out a feeler, which means a lot of other people are gonna be like, hey, what's this book about? So,
right. Well, Walaau is, as I mentioned, the name, it's a Hawaiian word, which means to speak loudly or excessively, which is used a lot in Hawaii sometimes as a part joke. Oh, this person is really Walaau. They really speak a lot. And so I had thought about, it was thought that to use this name as a character, no one had done that yet, and I thought it would be fun to see what that would be like. And so this character's name is Winona Govea, and she's a hairstylist. And as I think we lost Chris.
Okay, he'll come back. I have the faith. Trust me. If we speak loud enough, it might work.
Yes, there you go. So we've all known people like that in our lives, I'm sure, where you have the person who talks a lot. They mean well, they're talking a lot. She does. She talks a lot to her clients, and she says, she talks to them, and then what they don't know is that she has a secret side to her life. When she was a teenager, she developed an ability to emit powerful sound waves with the sound of her voice. And when she comes upon individuals who are doing things that she feels is wrong, she will go into battle and she will show them her power. So that's that. And so what happens, what she doesn't know, is that there is an organization that's out to get her. and they send one powerful character to go and get her. So that's where all of the drama happens.
Yeah, so let's get into this a little bit because obviously, I mean, this definitely, from what I've read on the 4 pages, it has a Hawaiian, and I'm going to say this the most politically correct way I could possibly say it, more of a native, I guess, native to Hawaiian feel to it, where I don't feel like, and I'm trying to be as politically correct as possibly can here, is I feel this it very much embodies Hawaiian culture versus Connecticut culture where I'm from. And
I see.
so what is that like? Because there's an element of representation there. There's an element where it is a very different, I guess, representation point of view, where I kind of feel it's got veins of a bunch of superhero books that have been out there, but it's also from a Hawaiian perspective, which is very different from a mainland America perspective. And that's what I think is so interesting about your book, from what I've seen of it. And I'm curious about the next 8 to 12 pages of it, what it's going to look like, because that's the vibe I got. And that's what's so cool about this is, and that's what drew me to even want you on my show to some degree.
Right. Well, there are a lot of local comic book creators here that have created stories. This was my way of throwing my hat into the ring a little bit to see, what I could do. And it's not really very heavily Hawaiian based. Cause I don't want to say Hawaiian because that's kind of a misnomer. It is based in Hawaii, correct. And she just so happens to have the character happens to have Hawaiian blood in her.
Maybe I'm a
She
little
also-
biased. I'm sorry.
No,
Maybe-
no, no.
sorry? No, you're
Maybe
good.
I'm taking it at a simple level, and I'm sorry if I did, but I definitely view
Oh no,
it.
no, it's fine.
A lot of people think
Yeah,
that,
she's-
man. Yeah.
So we are so this character is part Hawaiian. She's also part Portuguese, hence her last name. And so she goes out and she does everything within Hawaii. She's from Hawaii. The other character is Samoan, not from Samoa. He's from Hawaii originally, but moved to another state and had to come back to try to find her. So yes, there are a lot of different ethnicities throughout the book, as you'll see. I mean, only 4 pages have been made so far, and we're starting that Kickstarter to try to finish it. It's 4 pages out of a 16-page book, and we're really looking forward to getting funded so we can tell that story.
So to even go further into this, because obviously, I mean, you're both from Hawaii, and what is this like too? Because and comics is extremely international right now, where people are from Brazil, people are from Spain. I think Spain, France, and Japan are the #1 comic producers, and America is third or fourth. Which don't ask, right? That blows my mind. Those statistics. But what is this like? Because obviously, I don't think that people necessarily say Hawaii comic creators. Usually, you think California, you might think New York, you think Texas right now in America tends to be Florida is another one, which is very comic centric, Michigan, another. I don't think Hawaii. And what is that like? Because obviously there's you said a bunch of local creators there. And what is that like to be a part of that group and part of that organization and part of that, I guess, group of creators from there? Because Hawaii is not the first state in America that comes comic creator, if that makes any sense. And so what has that been like? Because I would imagine it's kind of, I don't want to say family, but hopefully it's supportive, I would imagine, because you kind of are alone out in the middle of the ocean, for lack of a better word. I'm putting it the nicest way I could put it. So, but what has that been like? Because I think it's interesting where you are in an ecosystem in Hawaii that is probably different than California as far as comic creation goes.
I think, well, you know, I came out to the mainland in 2016. I wanted to pursue graphic design in a further, just way beyond what I could reach in Hawaii. And I wanted to, apply for jobs and, keep drawing and keep doing what I could do. And I did a lot of freelance, and I think what you're saying is true. It is such a small, it's a small knit community in terms, like, most of the news people like Lawrence that I worked with, they all have worked with each other before. When you transfer to another station, familiar friends all the way around. So you kind of run into the same kinds of people, and I think the comic book community and the artists are similar as well, where you'll run into friends and you'll run into people who have all met each other. I remember drawing in Pro Ridge Mall with a bunch of good friends and learning the trades during our comic jams. But I think this is a community that's a very good melting pot of Asian American cultures, Polynesian cultures, and they have a really great story to tell. And a lot of people try to tell that story, and they always tell it from a tourist point of view. It's we got Lilo and Stitch, we got Moana. These are the, and then we got Hawaii Five-0, and we got, new Hawaii Five-0, and
you're touching. Sorry to interrupt. You're touching on something that I think
Yeah.
is actually really interesting, because obviously when I went to Hawaii, I went on a 10-day vacation to Maui. So I was a tourist.
Right.
I loved it and I had a great time, but I wasn't cultured there. And so, I think a lot of people are very cultured. I didn't even think that Lilo and Stitch was a tourist position. I mean, I love Lilo and Stitch, so I'm sorry if that offends anybody. But see, I love that whole thing. It's one of my favorite. I just bought a Lilo and Stitch comic book. It's one of my favorite books that's ever been done as far as covers. But it's just so beautiful. It's the cover is just brilliant. But that's so interesting because I do like representation. And obviously, as somebody who has a unique perspective on certain positions on disability, and as somebody who does have a physical disability, I have a very different perspective than somebody who doesn't. And I hate when somebody presents my view, but they don't have my problem. And what is that like? 'Cause I think that's what this book kind of does a little bit, even though you don't have, I mean, you guys might not want to say, hey, it's not pure Hawaiian, for lack of a better word. It still does present a Hawaiian point of view story versus me writing a Hawaiian point of view story. And there's a difference between those two. And so what is that like? 'Cause I think it's so interesting. Again, this is why I was drawn to having you two on my show. When I got legit 20 responses on my Monday.
I think we are getting closer to that more and more, to telling stories that are from the people. I think Lilo and Stitch was kind of just a dip in there. Yes, it tells the story of their family, but involves a really cute alien in the mix. And then Moana.
Best alien.
Yeah.
Come on, admit it. You know you want to admit it. I know you do.
I mean, I'm still partial to E.T. personally, but
you could be wrong. It's okay. Everybody gets class.
Tons of Star Wars characters may prove you wrong. But I digress. But if you, I don't think we have a lot of stories that quite tell from a perspective of somebody who lives there, and we don't have a lot of point of views from that point. So, when Lawrence was asking me to draw the cover, there were things that I threw into the cover in the background that are very reminiscent. Like there's a crane in the background that I put on the cover, and Lawrence says, "I love the crane." He goes, "You're just always showing that Hawaii is always under construction," and it always was. I I'm going home to Hawaii in a couple weeks, and every time I go there, it's like Back to the Future, where when I come back, everything is different, or a place that was a very special part of my life growing up is no longer there. It's gone, and it's all urbanized and gentrified and touristy. So I mean, but yes, that's the way they make their money. So there is that weird, you know, dichotomy at the same time where, you know, how do I keep the pieces of that, but how do they grow? You know,
So let's actually dive into that too, because I think there is an element of keeping something authentic. So with this cover, and obviously you're the cover artist, Chris. What is that like for you, Lawrence, to have somebody who is from Hawaii, understands, grew up in there, understands the culture, and can put things into a cover? Because I think there is an element to being authentic. You know, there's discussions, and I might get a little bit in troubles for this, but if you're doing a pride cover, I think there is a fair argument to be made saying, hey, maybe you want somebody who is of that community doing your cover for you. And there's plenty to choose from because they are going to be more authentic in certain aspects. Not saying that somebody can't do a pride cover in June if they're not of the community, but somebody who is obviously has a very different viewpoint. And I think DC Comics and Marvel has done a really good job by finding those artists to do certain covers like that who are part of that community, because I think it does create authenticity, it creates transparency, and it creates legitimacy. You know, and I think it's a very important thing. You know, even tabling money, and I know everyone wants to make money. Sometimes it's hard to figure out legitimacy versus making money, but there is something that is done. I mean, I guess we call it culture for lack of a better word. And I think it's very interesting. So I'm just curious how that is for you, Lawrence, because I would imagine it's pretty fucking cool.
I believe your initial question was, how do I feel about having Chris, who lived in Hawaii, be the cover artist? And I can boil it down to one word, and that would be ecstatic. As Chris mentioned, we worked together, and I first met Chris, I believe it was 2007.
I will just say I think so, but yeah, I think it's 2007.
So
yeah,
around there. But,
Date yourself.
and I
you don't have to. You could just say we met when we were, 18.
Well, I'm just
pinpointing
a time.
We're 19. We're all good. We're all good.
I was,
yeah.
I was,
maybe
yeah,
21.
I was very green during that time.
I'm pinpointing a time in my memory because I do remember how creative he was at that point, and I was in awe of his ability to draw. And he could just put something onto paper, and it would be done in such a way that I was in complete awe. And I knew that someday I wanted to do something with him. I wanted to be able to have him do something, and it took a long time, but I wanted to approach him. I approached no one else for the cover. It was him. He's the person I wanted for this cover. And
I don't know how much you've seen of my show, but I got to interview Steve Stern and Lamar Supreme. I don't know if you know who those two are, by any chance. Steve Stern
one name does, yeah.
And Lamar Supreme has done everything. He did stuff for Wu-Tang. He's done stuff for Czarface, a bunch of people, a lot of album covers. And Lamar has been around a long time. He's done a lot of stuff in pop culture. He's done a lot of stuff. He did an awesome Aaron Judge card for Top 70s, Project 70. A lot of cool stuff. And Steve was explaining that finding the right talent at the right time. So Lamar, I think, only did 3 or 4 comic books in his entire career. But it's so interesting when somebody finds the right talent at the right time and then capitalizes on finding that. And I think it's a lost position where I think sometimes people don't realize that, hey, I found a superstar or somebody who's really good and is perfect for my project, and they are the right talent at the right time, because that doesn't align. there's good talent, but the right talent and somebody who is an emerging talent that nobody's ever come across before, that is a very complicated position. So what is that like? Because that's what it seems like in many ways.
Yeah, Chris, you can speak to your graphics and drawing background, but for me, like I said, it's a no-brainer to have him do the cover. His ability to interpret things that I tell him, okay, I want this and I want this, and he goes, yeah, great, and then he comes out with this phenomenal piece of work that just, wow, you got all of that out of what I said. That's amazing. So
He had drawn
I
a very rudimentary version of the cover, and I was like, all right, I will do something with this.
Very is an understatement of the millennium, I think.
Oh,
Yes.
it was good enough to tell me what you were looking for, Lawrence. But again, like for me, it's been a while since we moved from Hawaii in 2016 to Florida, and then I got a job here in Connecticut. So I feel further and further away from home. And when Lawrence asked me, I've been feeling a little homesick, and I was like, absolutely, I will draw the heck out of this. I really had a good, just a passion for drawing the cover, and it was just, all the things hit right. And the best thing for me was, I've always told my children, I follow your dreams. You're gonna, keep doing the things that you love. And this was an opportunity that I just could not say no. I was, I get to give homage to home, and also get, pay homage to my favorite artists like Jim Lee. You can see, got him back there and there.
So let's even go further into the cover a little bit, because covers are massively important. And obviously I run an eBay business that is heavily cover art based. And I love variants. And I know for a fact that there are certain books that I could bring in 15 of them and they will sell out within a month in my store. Easy, hands down. And I know anytime I see a certain book or two dirt cheap, I pick them up and steal them because I know that I'm going to do it right with them, and covers sell books. I know that for a fact. So what is this like? Because obviously a cover, whether you have 1, 2, or 10, every single cover is important. And in many retrospects, I feel, obviously, I'm sure that both of you want people to read the book, but also that people buy books just to look at covers because it's the first thing they see. And so what is that like? Because your cover is in many ways an extremely important part of this Kickstarter. Because it's the first thing somebody sees is what's this? And that is incredibly important. And so what is that like for you? Because it's a big responsibility.
When I was a kid, the first time I held the four cover X-Men connecting covers in hand and just seeing Jim Lee's work for the first time, I was like, this is what I would love to do. And when Lawrence asked me to make these, to make this drawing, I was like, all right, I'll just keep sending you stuff every couple of months or every couple of weeks, and if I got something new, I'll send it. If you think it's awesome, you tell me when. And I just kept drawing on my iPad. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, I can see it.
If you can see it, but I kept sending preliminaries. I had sent a rough sketch, and he was like, "Great work. It needs this and this and this, and don't forget this." And I was like, great. I have questions about the costume. How many, is this here? Does this attach here? Does this attach at the hip? What do you want me to do? And I wanted her to be pretty. I wanted her to be beautiful. I was like, all right, let's make her gorgeous too, because I know just from all the covers I see at the comic book store, there's a lot of beautiful characters, and this one has to pop out. So I wanted some of that, some of those homages to the like the art germ covers that I always I always try to model my drawings after. Like, so it was fun to draw this.
A little bit further. Let's actually dive into this a little bit further. And let's actually get a little bit into Kickstarter, because right now, I mean, this is my opinion, and obviously I still have a lot of bad girl art, but I feel Kickstarter in many ways is embraced. Not safe for work is a really big thing on Kickstarter. Bad girl art is a huge thing on Kickstarter. And, sexy characters, beautiful characters. Now, I'm a huge fan of Zenescope. I have a good relationship with them. And sure. I'm not a fan of their nude covers. I'm not a fan of full frontal nude covers either. I mean, I bought topless covers as I have clients who want them, and they've explicitly asked me to buy them for them. And I'm happy to do so, but I'm not really a huge fan of it, because I think characters are sexier in poses that leave more to the imagination. And even when I'm in a comic shop, I'm like, cool, we got Jean Grey, and I'm using her as an example. She's in a sexy pose and she's suggestive. And so what is this like to figure out that balance on Kickstarter? Because I think the cover is a solid cover, but you're also now in a whole complicated world where the whole freaking ecosphere of Kickstarter is swinging and swaying and going 15 directions. And in 3 months from now, it's going to be going X. It's going to take a left turn, and it's going to take a right turn, that's going to stop, and then it's going to go sideways, and then we're going to do the time warp all over again. So, I'm sorry, the Rocky Horror thing. I'm a big Rocky Horror fan.
No, that's great.
No. Well,
so, what were you going to say? Please interrupt me. Just tell me to shut the fuck up anytime.
No, just no. With all due respect to all of the creators, all the comic creators, and all of those people that are really trying really hard to get their Kickstarter or Indiegogo, whatever it be, to get that through and get it funded. I have great respect for everyone trying to do that, because it's not an easy task. With that said, I personally, as Soaring Imaginations, I'm not going to go there with the over-sexualized nature of the characters. I am of the mindset about how does it tell the story? How does it help tell the story? Does the nudity tell the story? Maybe it does in some books, or is it just gratuitous?
I'll give you an example. There's a book called Sex, right? If you have a book called Sex right. is about a lot of stuff. It's about a retired superhero, somebody taking over the reins. It's got a sexual overtone going on. Relationships are over in that book, but none of the covers are nude. But there's nudity in the book, but there's no nudity on the covers. But I would expect nudity in a book like Sex. You got a title called Sex. Naturally, there's going to be nudity. You got a book titled, I'm trying to think of it, Cthulhu Invades Oz, which is by a good friend of mine, Travis Gibb. I don't expect nudity in that book, right? We have Cthulhu legitly invading the Wizard of Oz, right? It's pretty self-explanatory. So I agree with you where if a book has a premise where Faust is a good example. Faust, you expect it. Because it's just, if you don't know what you're signing up for with Faust, I'm sorry, everybody. Faust is brilliant, but Faust is not a book Faust is a book meant to look at the art. It's not a book look at the story. The story is average. The art is exceptional. The art is some of the best art that's ever been produced in comics. You buy that book because it's art. you don't buy that book because of the story. The story is a good story, but it's not a great story. But I agree with you. Sorry for interrupting, but I think you're making a really interesting point that, again, I think the nudity has been in many ways a cash grab by people because they want to put their book and they want to make money. And I can respect somebody making money in a capitalistic society because I'm a capitalist. But at the same time, if your book doesn't make sense, and then not to get too controversial, but what happens when you do Kim Possible nude? And somebody did that, and now it creates a whole issue.
Yeah, you get into a whole debacle here of
you get into a moral
issue. There's a lot of problems out there, and I think, you know, to this book's credit, we're not in that zone at all. We want to tell a story. We want to tell a story about a really, really powerful woman, and she is pretty, but she has all the power and charisma to back it up. So I think you know, I want to make good art. That's the thing with the cover. That's my biggest heroes. Just make good art. Like I'm getting angry at a lot of this low hanging fruit. Right now, there's a lot of low hanging fruit there of people doing Mid-Journey or Stable Diffusion AI and then splattering it on a cover because it's quick and they can make something really sexy in 5 seconds. That's not what we do. I don't think that's what great artists do. Great artists make their time.
You feel,
yeah.
Because again, I mean, we could have a real interesting discussion about Kickstarter. So I'm owed people who owe me products from 9 months ago on Kickstarter, and I get that Bad Girl Art sells. I get that, but I'm a business, and I'm getting and also right now cards are really working exceptionally well for me, more than comics are. And I've heard debates where not safe for work is bad for Kickstarter. I've also heard things that it's killing it because I've had experiences on both. I've sold books that were fun and great. A 601. Every time I bring a 601 J. Scott Campbell, Mary Jane book into my eBay store, it sells out in 3 days every time. So, but I don't consider that book to be sexualized the same way that a Zenoscope 99 topless cover is. I think those two do. I think Mary Jane is rather sexy on a 601. Of course I do. But I don't think it's overly sexualized. I think it works in the story, though. You got Peter coming home, right? Or leaving the apartment. You know, it works on a story level, but I'm really curious how you guys feel about this because I feel Kickstarter is in a weird place right now. Indie comics are in a massively complicated place. And I'm confused. And this is my business. And that's why because I think there's a problem where I think a lot of people are missing the mark on story right now. And I think that people say, oh, the big two have missed the mark. I don't know if indie is so far behind.
There's a lot of it
Lawrence?
in indie comics. There's a lot that, I mean, we see it every day, and that's, again, fine for those who want to tell that story, if it's part of their story. If it is gratuitous stuff, then that's another thing, and that's fine too, because there are people that want that. For me, that's not the direction that I want to take our comic books. I think, again, that story is important, and you have to have a good story to start with, and you don't really need. Think about it like in films. A lot of people want to see the lovemaking completely, you know, for half an hour and whatever it is, but that can be implied. Is that really important to the story to go through that process? Now, it might be in certain stories, but not in every story. So I don't see the need for us. For others, it may be fine, but that's not where we're going to go.
So let me ask this, because obviously that puts you into a interesting position on Kickstarter then, because
Yeah.
right now, this is my theory at least, and feel free to challenge me, is that I think the not safe for work necessarily is the choice. But I think all these people realize, say, hey, look, if I have a not safe for work cover, I am going to get another 50 people buying my book. I could charge $25 and then I get funded. And so I think this is where this whole debacle comes in, where obviously I made a choice, right? In my business, I understand that not safe for work works, and I want to make money and I want to become wealthy. I'm sorry, but I'm a capitalist. It's nothing against anybody. You can become wealthy too. It's America. It's the land of opportunities. But I understand that those books sell. And so I think this is where the debacle comes in, where great, you have a solid story, but if I keep it kosher and I just rely on my story, it's not working anymore. And what is that like? Because I think it's a complicated, tricky balance. And I respect anybody who says, look, I'm going to do fun covers and all that stuff. Maybe you have one or two variants, but I don't want to do that new thing. But you're also potentially leaving money on the table. And it's so tricky, and it blows my mind. So I don't want to do a comic, because it just seems so complicated. What is the right move? And
I think Lawrence is correct where he says that's fine for the people who wish to do that. That may be their game plan. I don't subscribe to that. And also with my family, my children, I can't be like, hey, look at this great NSFW cover that Daddy's making. That's not something that I'm happy to be like, hey kids, look what Dad made a bunch of money on. The comic book heroes that we follow, the tried and true. There's
Did he freeze? I don't know if he
I
froze.
think he did.
It's like in the middle of the statement.
I know, it was a great thought.
No, because the reason why I asked this. Yeah, hopefully he'll get back.
Yeah.
But the reason why I asked this is that it's a very tricky, narrow line at this point, where I just think that it's so complicated. And again, I have these discussions with people where there's lines I won't cross. Again, I've stated this before, where I will sell topless covers in my eBay store, because I understand that I have to do it, but I'm not a big fan of it. But there's also full nudity. And that's kind of where I'm like, I don't really need to see down below. That kind of defeats the purpose. And it's off-putting to me. And there's other reasons why also where eBay is cracking down on it. But I get why it's offered, because people want to buy it. And I think it's so interesting in this regard. And so I think it's just fascinating where people draw lines in companies. But I also understand Kickstarter is a complicated beast. And that's why I asked, because I don't know how you make those decisions and make those pulls and call it the way you call it. And this is not just a debate between you and me. This is a massive, complicated debate right now going on, I think, with a lot of people. So I just find it fascinating, to put it nicely. Hopefully we're gonna get Chris back soon, because I wanted that thought finished.
Yes.
But no, I'm not calling you out on it, because I don't disagree per se. I would love, and I've said this to my mom before. My mom hates my sexy covers that I bring in. I said to my mom all the time, she's not going to mind me saying this. I said, find me an alternative that provides me the same amount of money, and I will happily go to the alternative. And this is, I think, the whole issue with navigating Kickstarter right now. And so I'm just always curious how you are navigating, because I think it's really, really interesting in that regard. I'll bring Chris back. What was your thought? Finish your thought. While I duck out for 1 second to deal with something.
Oh,
What was your thought? I have to duck out for like 1 second.
got it.
My dog.
Okay. No, just I'm not really sure how to answer that question so much as to say that uh, we are living in a world where, you know, we've always lived. The world has turned around, has revolved, and sex has always been a part of everyone's lives. That's how we live. You know, that's how we're born, and sex sells. And it's unfortunate in certain circumstances that it has to be in everything, but it, you know, to each their own. Like I said, it works for some people, and as far as how I navigate it, um, it's just a matter of keeping true to what I think our company should be, and not crossing the line, and sticking true to it, just not going there. And if everybody else wants to do that, that's fine. It's perfectly fine. Uh, not
Fair
forcing
enough. I'm not
imaginations.
gonna push it. I'm not gonna push you anymore. But I do want to talk about another side of this on Kickstarter, in which that obviously Kickstarter is there's a lot of projects out there. The economy is not great. It's not terrible, but it's very complicated. And even navigating that, because I'll state this openly, a lot of people. So I don't normally throw out feelers on Facebook groups, but apparently every once in a while I do, and a lot of people apparently need help and need interviews.
Yes.
And so, what has this been like? Because I think that obviously my friend Travis was explaining that a lot of people, and I'll just state this from what I understand. I know a lot of people who used to fund in a week are now funding in week 2 or week 3. And so, what has that been like too? Because it is clearly getting complicated to fund on Kickstarter and getting eyes on projects and getting views and convincing people. And I'm very picky. I'm very picky. And I'm not the only one. I've also been disenfranchised where I'm owed 20, 25 projects. And I am very hesitant right now to back projects because I've been burned. And it's not anything personal against anybody, but when somebody screws you on a project, I kind of take a step back and I say, cool, is the next creator going to screw me too for $25? And all of a sudden, when you're owed 20 projects that are all late by 6 to 8 months or 2, 3, 5 years, you say, you know what? I go to my local store and they got a book on the shelf already done. And I buy a lot of baseball cards, and Topps gets me my cards in 20 days. And I know I'm going to get my cards. So, what is that like, too? Because I think it's a very complicated space right now where I think it's not your product that's the problem. I think the problem is that a lot of people there's a lot of good projects out there, and there's also been a lot of bad ones that have tested people's faith, for lack of a better word. I know how you feel about that. You guys want to answer that?
What do you think, Chris?
I think I've had my fair share of products that, you know, you back and you're like, yes, that is going to be amazing when it comes out. And then
Did
push
you
comes to
get it?
shove.
Let me ask this. Did you get the product that you thought was going to be amazing?
There were a couple of them where I'm like, there were some things for coffee, there were some things for my computer or graphics or motion
I'm not even
graphics.
talking about getting the product. I'm talking about not getting the product at all. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
what's killing me. I don't
you
even
just
care if
don't
it's shitty.
you just don't even
I
get
just
it.
want it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm at the
There's a lot
point
of promises. Yeah.
I don't even care about if it's good or bad. I want my book that I bought from 2 years ago. And it hasn't been delivered. I've had goalposts moved. I've had a product that got bought out by another company that I backed on Kickstarter, and I don't know what the hell's going on with it. And when you're burned by 20, 30, 40 projects, but I back a lot of projects, so I'll grant that. But again, that's why I become disenfranchised. And also the economy is a disaster and stagflation's involved. I don't think necessarily in America, and anybody who's watching, this is my opinion, where I don't think the economy is accurately being reported. I think inflation is much worse than it is. I think we're in stagflation, to be honest. And my money has to be deployed, and I'm also a business, and I have to find the best place to put my money. And also, I tend to have to buy product, and I have less and less capital, and I have to make sure I'm damn right when I back a product. Even for a personal level, I have a budget. And so that's what I think's happened. That's why I think everybody needs help right now in this space. I put out a feeler, I get 20, 25 responses. There's a reason why. Because everybody's feeling it. So I'm just curious how you guys feel this, because it's crystal clear to me that there's an issue going on where I don't know, like I ran a Kickstarter and it was hell. It was miserable. I don't want to run another one ever again. It was horrible. So
I think we're in a weird situation no matter what. I mean, look at fast food. You're paying upwards of more than $40 when you used to be able to feed everybody for $5.
That brings me to my
from the
sponsor,
dollar menu.
$10, guys. No, they're not a sponsor. I'm sorry, it's too easy. I've been doing stand-up, everybody. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to learn how to live with me. I'm very good at this, and which means I'm really bad at it. I'm learning hard. Trust me, there's crickets sometimes, and it's not fun. And then I cry at night. Like going to the corner. No, continue, please.
No, but I think what you're saying about the economy is valid. People have less money to put out there because of how much they're paying for other things, especially for groceries. I think it's going to be, putting your monies into the right things and hoping that your investment is sound before you even place your money there. That's the run of things now. They only follow people who have influence. If you're an influencer, yeah, I'm gonna back you. I'm gonna put all my money into that person because I know that person makes money. And I think
that's everybody. That's how I feel about Logan Paul. Him and his U.S. title. That's how I feel. When he tried to sell that U.S. title the other day, I was in. I would have bought it.
It's crazy, man. Huh? It's crazy. I mean, even the whole Mike Tyson thing, that's a money maker in just the conversation. In just the conversations people have.
I have a friend who works with Floyd Mayweather. And he was trying to upsell me on something, and I was just not interested. But me and him had like an hour conversation, and I get it. I completely get it. Trust me, I know all about influence. I have some very interesting friends, to say the least. So I get it.
And with about 7 minutes left, the great segue into, we have 16 days left on our campaign.
Why are you hijacking my show, man? This is my show. What are you doing here? No. Yeah. I should give you an opportunity to promote yourself. But before I do, I'm going to give you the last 5 minutes. Don't worry. I am curious where the two of you think comics are going and pop culture is going, because I think it's interesting. We were touching upon it anyway, but where do you guys think it's going? Because obviously it is an interesting space at the moment.
I think it's definitely changed from the early days where the Avengers were new and Sam Jackson was hunting for everybody. It's very different from that now. I think the Deadpool and Wolverine movie is going to be very it's going to be the thing everybody's watching to see what happens in the comic space, because it's either, if it tanks, what's the savior of comics at that point?
We're all looking for Taylor Swift in that movie. That's all we care about. Go. And then Deadpool 4 is all about Travis Kelce.
Oh boy. I don't know,
I'm
man.
calling it here. I'm calling it here. We all know I'm right.
Might be.
But maybe. But in terms of
I digress. What do you
where,
think, Lauren? What do you think? Did we lose Lawrence?
Sorry,
Lawrence,
no.
pop
It
culture is going.
broke up over here.
So where do you think pop
Could you
culture
please
is
repeat
going?
the question?
Where do you think pop culture and comics are going? Because obviously a lot's changed in the sector.
Oh, there will always be characters that will be created, and there's always stories to tell. They may be told again and again and again, but with a different character, a different genre. And I know that people say that what is the saying that all stories have already been told by Shakespeare? I think that probably before that they were told long before Shakespeare. So, but that's storytelling, and pop culture is a lot about storytelling. So I think it'll always be there. And you're going to have these characters, and kids are going to love the new characters. Adults will love new characters. It'll just keep going. Might have different mediums as as technology advances, but it will always be there.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But I do want to give both of you a chance to promote yourselves. Obviously, the Kickstarter's got, as you stated, before you cut me off, which is offensive. No, I'm just joking. Absolutely fine to tell me to shut the fuck up at any given point. More than happy to surrender this, because this is not about me. It's about you two tonight on my show. But anyway, where can people find the Kickstarter? Where can people find you? Where can people follow you on social media, Twitter, Facebook, pages, Instagram, TikTok, all that fun stuff? I don't know who wants to promote first.
Well, for Soaring Imaginations, our Walaau project is on Kickstarter, and you can find a link to that on our website at soaringimaginations.com. Excuse me. And we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook at Soaring Imaginations with an S, and check us out there and support us as much as you can.
Awesome. I don't know if you guys have, social media pages or Twitters that you want to promote or anything like that. Or no, it's fine if you don't.
Yes.
I mean, you can follow us again at, as Lauren said, at Soaring Imaginations, or me personally, Chris Dela Cruz art, and this Chris is with a K.
Yes. And then I got what I got going on is obviously, I'm going to just say this: you got to support people who are creating indie projects. That means back to Kickstarters, following them on social media, signing up for email lists, TikToks, Instagrams, Facebook pages, all that fun stuff. And then everything that I got going on is Popanimecomics on Twitter/X, Popanimecomics on Instagram, Popanimecomics on Facebook. Usually when I have two guests, it's on the bottom, but we have three, so it's kind of blocked by my lovely face. But that's all right. I'm perfectly fine with that tonight. But that's social media. YouTube is Popanimecomics, and I have 1,400 plus videos up there, almost 800 interviews. So there's something for everybody on my show out there. And things are constantly being added onto it. So again, I cannot promise that you will get smarter, but I can assure you that you will be entertained in some fashion. So that's what I got going on. And then I have an eBay business that you can go right here, come shop with us on eBay, Popanimecomics Collectibles. And I have awesome, awesome things like this right here. I have all 15 of those in hollow foil. I also have all 15 of these in hollow foil, and I have several others, things like this. But apparently, my customers are telling me they can't see this card, and I don't know.
I can't see it either.
I weigh it, and I contacted the company, and they're like, "We weighed it too," and they just can't see it, and I'm very confused but they're like, we're not unhappy with you, but I don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do. It's a very complicated situation for me. But they're not complaining and they leave me great feedback. So there you go. I got a lot of those in there, as well as some cool stuff that is going to be awesome, such as soon as I find the book, if I could ever find the book, like this, which may or may not be in Deadpool 3. So that may or may not be in Deadpool 3. Just calling it right now. But again, that's everything that I do. So anything Popanimecomics is mine, and that's what I got going on. And come subscribe to my YouTube channel. It means a lot to me. Makes me feel special inside. Makes me feel wanted. Makes me feel loved. It's a hug, but virtually. It's great. But yeah, that's everything that I got going on. But that's everything I got going on. So I believe everybody that is a wrap. And I would just like to thank my guests, and everybody have a good night.